Today I'm going to give you a winter update on the flowers that we currently have growing and overwintering on our farm. Let's go. Hey friends, it's Kendall, your joyful farmer. It may be December here in North Texas, but it is still green around here. We've planted more than quadruple the number of cool season flowers this year, and I am so excited to have them bloom this coming spring. So I thought I would show you what we have growing and how we accomplish helping these plants to survive the winter. Here in Zone 8A, we occasionally have winter temperatures that drop as low as 10 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 12 degrees Celsius, and sometimes it even gets a little cooler than that. We're growing a ton of cool hardy annuals that, as long as their roots are established, they will survive in our zone. I do, however, hate seeing foliage damage on the plants, even if they will keep growing from the root system in the spring. So I tend to baby the plants with hoops and row cover anytime we have below freezing temperatures, and I'll even occasionally mulch over some of the smaller and more frost sensitive plants before covering them. Doing that last year helped virtually all my plants to survive the winter, and it gave us way earlier spring blooms than we would have if I had waited until early spring to plant out transplants. So let's take a look around, and I'll even show you the new perennial beds next to the pergola, as well as the tunnels where I have some very special flowers growing this winter. All right, so down here on the end, this is the row that I like to put larkspur in. Larkspur is something that I direct sow in October if I can get away with it, and I've arranged the larkspur in color blocks. So I think it's something like pink, white, lilac, purple. But this row also has a ton of volunteer larkspur, so I don't doubt that I'll have some mixes in color, and it's got some weeds in here that I really need to deal with before spring comes and they overtake the larkspur. So it's about time that I need to deal with those. But I do not cover larkspur in our zone. It will survive the winter just fine without even any coverage at all. I do really appreciate the timing of the trees. They lost their leaves just as these larkspur babies were starting to get a little bit bigger, and so the leaves have naturally mulched that bed for me. In this section, I think I've got some direct sown stock down here at the end and some more successful germinated direct sown stock down here, as well as lots of weeds right here at this point. And there are some volunteer bachelor buttons that I've got to decide whether or not I want to keep. Stock is something that I've been trying various methods to get right here in North Texas, and I definitely am going to have to cover the stock. So anytime it drops below freezing, I really will try and baby those plants so that they will make it through without their foliage being damaged. I'm noticing that some of the outer leaves on the stalk are pretty yellow, and that's because this soil in this row is not super nitrogen filled. So I'm gonna have to come in and give them some fertilizer, which they really need anyway. I'll have to start fertilizing that stalk regularly. Down here I've got saponaria or soapwort. It's one that it looks like it's about ready to start blooming, so I'm hoping that it will hold off over the winter and not bloom. But it's a nice pink color, and I did grow a little bit of soapwort last year, but I grew it in the springtime, so I'm gonna try it over this winter and see how it does. Down here I have some direct sown agrostemma. This is a different color than what I had last year. It's ocean pearls. I think it's like a white with a little bit of pink blush on it. I just thought it sounded really like a good idea. And I was very sparse with my seeds. You can see I kind of sprinkled a few seeds every 6 to 9 inches. And I love agrostemma. It's so pretty. I'll have to pop some photos on the screen for you. But it's such a pretty addition to the early spring garden. Down here's my patch. Down here is one of my little patches of white dill or ami. It's direct sown, and so some of the plants are a lot bigger, some are a lot smaller. I'm gonna have to come in here and thin this. I might do it before the spring just because the plants are getting pretty big at this point, but white dill or Ami, just, you really only need one plant of it to get a ton of stems. But I'll have a nice little patch there. This is Orlea that I think is direct sown as well, and other little volunteers in there too. This row is mostly yarrow. This one on the end is actually marshmallow yarrow, and it's pretty dainty. I think the plants are a lot more petite than I thought that they would be. The stems are not going to be nice and long, but elsewhere I have pearl yarrow, and that's the one that I think is supposed to have longer stems. I've already got some little blooms on this marshmallow yarrow, but it should survive our winter with no cover. And same with the yarrow down here. This one, I transplanted all of these in October, I believe, and so they're a better size than I had last year. I think last year I transplanted yarrow about January, and so I still got good stems, but I'm hoping that these will give me lots more stems because I planted them that much quicker. And no coverage needs on the yarrow. The yarrow, I think, will survive winters down to zone 3 or 4, really cold. I haven't uncovered all of these guys. I just didn't quite get around to it. Oh, that's some white dill transplants, some more Ami. I probably didn't need that much Ami. Oh well. And down here on the end, this is, some Cerinthe or honeywort. These are going to be super cool. I haven't grown these yet, but I'm really excited to see how early I can get it. It's supposed to be a really pretty filler with kind of a glowing blue indigo color. Over here on this side, still partially covered up. I'm going to have to cover up these babies here in an hour anyway, because it's supposed to drop down to like 27 tonight. But this is calendula. I missed out on calendula last year. I forgot how much I enjoyed growing it, especially for medicinal uses. Love to use it as an oil that I steep for whipped tallow balm. I have several different colors of calendula this year, so I can't wait to see those bloom. Down here is some scabiosa. I have tons of different colors of scabiosa this year. Yeah, so there's some Oxford blue, and then there's also a bunch of Fata Morgana, which is like that cream color with the blush. On this end, I've actually got some scabiosa that I'm not sure if it's a perennial scabiosa, but it kind of looks like it. The leaves are kind of telling me that it might be a perennial type. It doesn't look like the annual type leaves, but it was a blush scabiosa, and I think I got the seeds off of Etsy. So it's kind of a mystery. We'll see how those bloom and how they do. This glorious stand of green plants is more agrostemma. This is the purple. I had saved a ton of seeds from last year's agrostemma, and I had a maybe 15 or 20 foot section of it that I absolutely didn't need, and I couldn't use that much agrostemma. So I pared down to more like 6 feet of the purple and 6 feet of the Ocean Pearls white blush color. But aren't they pretty? Look how beautiful these plants are. They direct sow so easily, and I sowed them so thickly, and they all pretty much popped up. I have a little tiny patch of bachelor buttons, something I sowed that didn't come up here. I think there's a little bit of bupleurum that was direct sowed. You can see in here. I prefer to transplant bupleurum just because it doesn't do as, not that it doesn't germinate. Here's some more over here. The bupleurum does germinate for me direct sown, but it's not quite as reliable as the transplants. For me anyway. Down here, there is some Persian cress that's pretty eaten up by some pests at this point, and then covered under here that I should have uncovered so it would get some air the past couple of days. Let's check and see what's down here. These are some huge straw flower plants. These were, I think, some of the first ones that I transplanted. It's a vintage white, and straw flower is pretty borderline, kind of tender for our zone. So I'm a little concerned about the size of these plants overwintering and surviving. Typically, the transplants that are smaller are going to survive the winter a little bit better, but this is what I have at this point. It's already December 13th and I have giant straw flower plants. So we'll see. I'm just gonna try and keep them babied. I will double row cover these. I'll put 2 layers of row cover or use a heavier row cover to try and get the foliage to survive whenever it gets cold. Some varieties of straw flower survive colder temperatures than others. I'm not sure what the vintage white will do, so we'll see. And next to the straw flower, I have a couple of kind of cool plants. This is a status that I believe this was the pink poker status. Super pretty. I'm gonna have to check and see, but it's behaved very well out here. And then there's a pink poker status. Last year I had some plants in January. They were really, really tiny and I transplanted them out and they didn't do much. So I'm excited to have some this year. This is Crispedia. I think it was just tucked into another status transplant for some reason, but we'll leave them there. There are blackberry plants. There are 2 little rows of delphinium down here that I really just put there to try and see how they will do. Delphinium is a super cold hardy plant, but it tends to not survive our summers here in North Texas, so it will not perennialize for us, but we can grow it as an annual. Down here I have my bells of Ireland. They're direct sown. Direct sowing is their preferred way of getting started in the garden. Really sweet little plants. I'm gonna do a better job of thinning them to 1 plant per 6 inches this year. Last year I got a little bit of yellowing, a little bit of disease on them. They were in a little bit more of a water logged location though in the garden as well. So I don't think that bells of Ireland like wet feet, and I think they like a little bit more space than I gave them last year. Down here is some Nigella or Love in a Mist. It's the green pod kind. So I'm hoping that it will produce the really cool green pods that I can put in arrangements. I direct sowed it. It did really well, and I won't thin those until the spring. There's a few more delphinium in here. Down here is more Orlea that I transplanted. I don't think that I need that much Orlea, but there it is. And down here, this one is new to me this year. This is Dara or Daucus, and it's a mix of colors. So there will be some darker purples, some pinks. Should be really pretty as it's a carrot that will produce some pretty flowers, pretty umbels for bouquets. I just have a short little patch of those, maybe about 8 feet. And down here are some more of the blush scabiosa. I think that I planted these out before the others because they're a lot larger size plants at this point. But see the different shape of their leaves? So I don't think that these are going to be your typical annual scabiosa. I think they're slightly different, but we will see. This row is a really exciting row for me and is a little bit of an experiment. Down at the end, I'll show you, there are feverfew transplants. So I have about 30 feet worth of feverfew down here. And on this end, this is direct sown feverfew. So it was seed that I had saved from last year. And I did have quite a few come up. I'm hoping that those will be kind of a succession of feverfew for me. Feverfew, it quit pretty early for me last year after it bloomed. It did try to produce a little bit of a second flush, but I kind of struggled with it a little bit to get more out of it, probably because it heats up so quickly here in North Texas in the spring. But here are my feverfew transplants. They're looking pretty good. I'm seeing a little bit of frost damage on the leaves, just a little bit, not a whole lot, but feverfew is supposed to survive down to zone 5 with no cover, and I don't think that means that the foliage survives. I think that means the roots will survive. So I will probably end up covering this row if the temperatures start to drop below maybe 25 or 20 degrees, just so that I can baby them and get extra blooms earlier in the spring. I just came in here today and I applied a little bit of top dressing of compost on this row. Over here on this side, still covered up, is some more straw flower, not quite as big as the vintage white that was over there. But let me see what color this is. This is king-sized purple rose. So that's another really beautiful straw flower. You can see that it's already doing some branching from the main stem, which is really great, knowing that the straw flower plants are going to have that many stems, hopefully early in the spring, as long as they survive being this big. I don't know, we'll see. Down here is more straw flower. This is probably bright rose. This is the little bed of kind of random direct sown plants, as well as a bunch of volunteer Dianthus japonicus that's in here. And there are a couple of plants of Dianthus japonicus that I just left from the summer. This is kind of it's a little bit more junky of a row. It's got some leftover plants, but I'm just testing to see how some things do if I leave them in the ground rather than pull everything up and replant it. There's some volunteer bachelor buttons. These Cerinthe plants are some that I transplanted out here just to kind of try them in this spot because I had a little bit of a blank spot. Down here is some scabiosa. These are actually plants from last spring that I just left, and I may trim them back a little bit more to see what they do in the spring, but just a little experiment to see what the scabiosa will do. And then down here I've got some more scabiosa. I think this is some sort of a bright red, maybe a Merlot red. Okay, forgive my messes in these rows. I left all the drip tape out so that I would know where the rows were. When everything is kind of tarped over, it's really difficult to find your rows again out here. So I left the drip tape out just so that I knew where my rows were gonna be. I need to pull it up and replace it at some point. These two rows are Lisianthus that was planted out in, I wanna say July or August of this last year, because I attempted to get some fall Lisianthus. They are a little bit frost damaged at this point because they did go through a frost uncovered, but again, just a little experiment to see how these will do in their second year. And there's more straw flower down there. I bet you can't tell that I love straw flower. And this is a biennial Sweet William that I actually haven't seen bloom yet. It will bloom in the spring for me, but I have yet to see what color it is. Lots more straw flower. And then down here at the end is a Sweet William that is not biennial, and you can see why. I transplanted these in October, and they're putting out buds and blooms right now. So Sweet William is apparently notorious for doing that. But the best thing to do, according to Lisa Mason Ziegler, who's the cut flower queen, in my opinion, she says to just leave the stems alone. Don't cut them, because that will prompt the plant to push out more blooms before the spring. But just leave them alone, kind of let them be, and let the plants kind of slow down. And hopefully they'll get to the spring, and then I'll have tons and tons of blooms from them. This row is Lisianthus, and you can see there's more down there. This row I have not done any mulching to. I've done some weeding, but I do need to come in here and fill around the plants, probably with a little bit of extra compost, a little bit of extra mulch. Last year I had one row of Lisianthus, and this row, there's 1, 2, just about 3 rows of Lisianthus. Hey, Leia. That's Leia. Where's Luke? Luke, my garden buddy's usually out here with me. That's weird. This is status. Tons of different status that I've got in this row. The plants actually died back once. They were bitten by frost, so you can see there's some dead leaves here at the bottom. And then they, of course, came back after the frosted. I'll do better and make sure they're covered this time. But there's some more status down there, the different types that I believe is the rat tail status. And there's some Siberian status down there as well that just kind of got mixed in with the other status. Down here at the end of the status row, I've got more Sweet William. That's another first year flowering variety of Sweet William, and a lot of them are trying to send up a shoot, but we'll just leave them alone. This row has a bunch of Lisianthus, and there's something else that's special down there at the end, but this is how I prefer to plant Lisianthus. This is Bio 360 mulch. It's the biodegradable mulch, and because Lisianthus like to be planted a little bit closer together than some of the other flowers, that makes weeding a little bit more difficult. So because I like to stagger plant the Lisianthus, it's helpful to have this here as a weed barrier, as well as hold in more moisture in the heat of the summer when the plants are nice and big. But it just helps to kind of seal that moisture in and helps them to stay warmer in the early springtime and over the winter. And down here at the end, this is something new to me this year. This is winged everlasting, or amobium, and I was a little bit confused by this one because looking it up online, everything says it is frost tender. Do not plant until after your last frost date. But then I saw Lisa Mason Ziegler put out a video the other day that had her amobium and had snow all over it, and she said, oh, it'll be just fine. And so here it is out here. I'll cover it below freezing just to baby the plants and get them through to the winter. But this was just an extra spot that I had prepared, and I just planted these a few days ago. In this row, I have a few failed snapdragons. The soil back there is just not super alive. This particular section of soil is just really wanting as far as like nutrition and structure. So it's a little bit sandier and there's clay underneath. The snapdragons are not happy, but that's okay because I've got tons more snapdragons coming. This is the Bupleurum that I transplanted, and you can tell they're getting acclimated. They will not need to be covered at all. Hopefully this winter I may cover them if it gets really super duper cold, but there they are. And in these two rows, which I still have, this one I forgot to uncover yesterday, there is ranunculus. I have so much ranunculus. We planted about 1,600 plants this year, which is about 16 times as many as I planted last year. And so I'm really excited about it. I have them covered with, this is an extra heavy frost cloth, extra heavy weight. So these plants are doing well. I think this is a white. This whole section here is white ranunculus, and then this ranunculus I planted in a rainbow. So I'm trying to remember, I think it was red, orange, yellow, or it could be pink, red, orange, yellow, something like that. But you can tell this ranunculus is doing fine as well. It's been through a few below freezing nights with the lighter weight, just row cover, and it's doing fine. Over on this side, I've got a row of Lisianthus. This Lisianthus has been out here longer. This is the first round that I transplanted, and these were the plugs from Farmer Bailey. The others were all Lisianthus that I started from seed, but these are from Farmer Bailey. They're looking great. And I actually have a little bit of an experiment going down here. I had a section of my Lisianthus that survived the summer. And since I don't water plants after July or August, I was pretty impressed that they survived at all. So I have some plants down here that they're a little bit puny, but they are gonna be second year plants. And I did plant some transplants around them. So a little bit of an experiment just to see how those lisianthus will fare over there. And on the other side of the food tunnel here, we've got the new perennial bed space. There are some plugs that I planted out, as well as some things that I started from seed. There are some different types of Monarda, bee balm. I have this row that is trachelium or throatwort. This one's new to me this year. Yeah, there's a lot of weeds in here too I need to come deal with, but this did not like our first freeze. So I lost some of the plants, but some of them, the tops just died back and they're still growing. So I am going to see if I can overwinter these, but if not, I'm just gonna start them in the spring, and I would like to see if they'll perennialize in North Texas. I'm not sure. And then I've got lots of Eryngium. These were from plugs that I bought from Farmer Bailey, and I think I got maybe 120 of them, which was way more than I needed. But I just went ahead and planted the Eryngium all around this space. It'll take it a couple of years to really start blooming and putting out a lot of stems, but I thought I'd get it started over here. And then I do have a lot of Veronica. There's a bunch of Veronica plugs that I got from Farmer Bailey, and then some that I also started from seed. There's some white and blue. Over here is the Perennial Scabiosa. So it has a little bit different shaped leaves. Doesn't look like the annual ones. So you can kind of tell that they're different. And this is the Fama mix. So some mixed colors. Probably have about 20 of those plants. This, I want to say this is the Siberian status. It's really flat and it's kind of growing out. It's slow growing, but it is growing. So I know its roots are established at this point. But that one should perennialize here as well. Some of the Eryngium is white, and then some of the Eryngium, I think I have some blue as well. This little section over here is Canterbury bells. Canterbury bells, I think, are hardy to zone 5, I want to say. They survived last year, our winter, and the ones that I got to survive and bloom were beautiful. So I have quite a few more this year, all different colors. I don't think that I'm going to get them to perennialize, but I needed a spot for them. In this tunnel, I've got gladiolus along either side, and the grapevines are on this tunnel. And then I've got a bunch of daffodils that I planted in here this year. So we'll have those in this perennial space. Here they are, starting to pop up. And then we've got bee balm, more bee balm over here. And then I just planted these maybe a week ago. These are the pearl yarrow. So they have the shape of the marshmallow yarrow flowers, but they're supposed to give a lot taller stems and the plants will be a lot bigger, and they're supposed to perennialize. So all good things. And more Canterbury bells or campanula. So that's what's going on out in the big garden right now. And we've also got an expansion that's going to happen back that way. A very nice man running some water to the new garden space, but that whole fenced area, that fence is going to come down, and that's going to be where we put our warm season annuals, and hopefully a U-pick area is going to be over there. So really excited about that. Okay, I was on our way to the tunnels, and here's the cottage garden. She's very sleepy right now, but isn't she pretty? We'll deal with her later. Okay, so we made it over to the tunnels. We'll go in the high tunnel here in a second. We have the high tunnel, this new tunnel, new to us, used but new to us, and then the mini tunnel back there behind. So it's kind of like daddy tunnel, mama tunnel, baby tunnel. But in here, in the medium-sized tunnel, freshly uncovered, are some ranunculus. These are my favorite varieties that I put in here. These are from Awnings. So far the plants look absolutely beautiful, and I'm really, really excited for those. This space is going to end up being ranunculus, and there's also ranunculus back there in that back row, and it's going to be our plant sale in the spring. So I'm going to have to fence off the ranunculus a little bit and add a walkway that'll go all the way around. Just some weed fabric is probably what I'll put down. And there are shelves that go all along both sides. So I'm really, really thrilled to have a space to grow some starts for some people and have them come pick them up. So that is the medium tunnel. I probably need a better name for the medium tunnel. We got her from somebody for $1,200 off Facebook Marketplace. I was so excited about that. Okay, and this is what is now affectionately termed as the baby tunnel. It has ranunculus and anemones in it. We've got ranunculus back there in the back and anemones up front. Anemones on this side and more ranunculus there in the back. There's more ranunculus, but right now I just have it, the front and the back of the tunnel are kind of vented and undone. It is not a perfect growing situation, but I needed another space for more ranunculus and anemones that I happened to buy. So we have them out here, and anytime the temperatures are below 28 degrees Fahrenheit at night, I'm either going to make sure that the tunnels are sealed up or have them covered with the row cover, or both. For now, I've just kind of had it vented. I think our lowest low temperature has been maybe 27 degrees. So for now, they're doing just fine. And, oh, I'm excited about this. I had a bunch of larkspur seed that I had left over, and I just decided that I would put larkspur. It's pink larkspur all down here in front of the baby tunnel. So I think that'll be really pretty just to have, just because. And let's check in here in the big tunnel. Hey, goat. Okay, so the big tunnel, the high tunnel, has mostly flowers in it this year. We've converted more from vegetables to flowers, and so over the winter I have it full of flowers. So over here on the left side there are some dahlia tubers that are in the ground, and really that's fine for them here in North Texas. We can overwinter our dahlias in the ground, no problem, but it will be nice to have the extra coverage of the tunnel. And then you can see these little bits of green here between the dahlias. That is the rest of the cerinthe. So because cerinthe is a one and done crop, and because it will be done hopefully pretty early in the season, probably far before the dahlias even start to put up shoots, I can harvest their cerinthe, and then I'll have room for the dahlias. This past year, our dahlias were a little bit of a bust because there was a really, really cold night, and I had some seeds that were already planted and some transplants that I had planted out pretty early. It was beginning of March, end of February, and a lot of our dahlias were stunted. So I didn't really even get any until the fall. But next year, lots of dahlias. I have some eucalyptus that I actually need to harvest today, or at least zip this up tonight, because it's going to be about 28 degrees for a low tonight. But I do need to harvest eucalyptus and get it out of here, maybe make some shower steamers for people for Christmas presents. And I've got tons of greenhouse forcing snapdragons, which were really slow growing in the spring. I didn't do a great job of feeding them, but now they're kind of going crazy and I don't even have them netted. So I'll end up mowing them down, putting some netting up, and then in the spring, they'll come back and I'll have tons of really pretty snapdragons. And then in these 2 rows, I've got snapdragons in stock. So I have various different types of snapdragons in here. The ones that are probably doing the best are these double frappe snapdragons from Johnny's, I believe. They are just the most vigorous plants out of any of them. And I really just kind of let them naturally pinch themselves. Some of them were struggling in the trays because I was a little bit delayed in planting them out. But they are super green at this point, and most of them are going to make lots of flowers for us. Hopefully early in the spring. We'll see how early. And this experiment I'm really excited for here. This is my row of stock, and all of the stock in here should be done by the beginning of April. I'm hoping even by the middle of March, so that this particular row in the high tunnel can be our food row. I can continue to grow tomatoes and cucumbers vertically in here, and bush beans and all sorts of things that I want to keep in here outside of the insect pressure. There is insect netting on both sides, and just excited about the stock that's going to be in here. Hopefully, I have a feeling that this is going to be the way to go for me as far as growing stock. I've tried multiple different methods, and transplants in the high tunnel might be the best way for me. Over here is the mess of heirloom mum leftovers that I really need to come in here and cut down and deal with. And back here, I have direct sown Clarkia. So Clarkia or Godetia, it was a beautiful flower that I grew out in the big garden last year. It bloomed right around Mother's Day. It was really, really beautiful. But the problem was flea beetles. Somehow a crazy amount of flea beetles flocked to that Clarkia and consumed the leaves. Some of the flowers were still okay and usable, but the leaves were absolutely torn up. So I'm hoping that having Clarkia in here outside of the insect pressure will be a good solution for that. Look at this crazy eucalyptus. Eucalyptus will overwinter in our zone. We're kind of 8A, 8B, and it overwintered just fine without any extra mulch here in the high tunnel over last winter. So I expect it'll do just fine again. I have some different varieties this year. I'm trying to remember the name of this one. This was new to me last year. I think it's the silver plate, but I love the way it dangles. So pretty. And then of course that's the baby blue, and the silver dollar is slightly bigger leaves. But they're all pretty. I need to come in here and get them harvested so they don't go to waste. So that's what our winter looks like this year here in North Texas. Lots more flowers that we are overwintering, and I am super excited to see them bloom in the spring. What are you growing over the winter? Are you excited about the spring? Let me know what you are looking forward to in the comments below. I wish you joy, and I'll see you next time.